Good morning. Hey, it's on. That light is right there. My name is Diane Petrella, and I'm the Dean of the College of the Arts here at Kent State. And it's absolutely my pleasure to welcome you to Art Without Limits. As you can see, as we get going throughout the day and all the activities that are planned, the arts are alive and well at Kent State University, and we enjoy tremendous support from our administration and the entire campus and community. And that's why we're able to support events like this today. Today will be an exciting and inspiring day. We're going to have presentations, exhibits, and all kinds of activities. Everything that's designed to highlight the possibilities for future arts entrepreneurs and those who want to develop an entrepreneurial mindset in the arts. The event has evolved from a very small panel who spoke to an audience of around 40 different Kent State students to today's event, where we're going to have about 800 high school students who are interested in the arts who will join us today at various points, along with many community members and colleagues. Of course, the students from the College of the Arts, there's around 2,400 of us, and students from across the entire campus will also attend some of the activities throughout the day. Of course, an event like this takes a tremendous amount of time and effort. So I do want to take a moment to thank everyone who contributed to this year's Art Without Limits. First, our entrepreneur in residence and College of the Arts faculty member, Nick Petrella, whose vision elevated this concept to what you see today. I also want to thank all of our faculty and staff who served on the planning committee. I want to thank them for their efforts. This is a tremendous amount of work, and they've done an amazing job. And then our College of the Arts staff, who are already sprinkled around here and have been hard at work for a very long time. They've pitched in to cover on every front, and I just want to make sure that they know how much their efforts are appreciated. I also want to give a special thank you to our partners, the Brinzo Center for Entrepreneurship, the School of Visual Communication and Design, and LaunchNet. I hope you all have a great day. Please don't be afraid to ask a lot of questions, and take a moment to head over to our Center for the Visual Arts, which is just across the parking lot, to see some displays of Kent State student arts and some things that are for sale from some of our arts-related organizations. And I also want to invite everyone to join us at the end of the day at 5 o'clock. We'll have a reception up here to network with some of our presenters, get some free food, but you can mingle with a lot of our guests and some of our featured speakers. But it's my pleasure now to introduce Associate Professor of Art, Taryn McMahon, who will get us started by introducing our first speaker, Delita Martin. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Diane. It is my pleasure today to introduce to you all Delita Martin. She's an artist and activist based in Huffman, Texas. A multidisciplinary creator who draws, sews, collages, and paints on paper, Martin often depicts Black women whose stories have historically been omitted from Western art. Combining modern and traditional materials and imagery, Martin constructs images inspired by her personal history in order to generate new narratives and challenge societal norms. She received a BFA in drawing from Texas Southern University and an MFA in printmaking from Purdue University, and previously taught drawing at the University of Arkansas. In 2020, she launched the Black Box Press Foundation, dedicated to supporting artists whose work inspires activism and social change. Her work has been exhibited nationally and internationally and is held in numerous private and public collections, including the Museum of Fine Arts Houston, Bradbury Art Museum, Arkansas, Gorman Museum, California, Crystal Bridges Museum in Arkansas, the David Driskell Center, the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C., and many, many others. I wanted to note on a personal note that I've been aware of Delita Martin's work for a very long time now. She's an enormous figure in the printmaking field. And I knew that I had to bring her to Kent State for this conference when I saw her chair a panel at the SGC International Conference in Providence, Rhode Island a few years ago. She chaired this amazing panel called The Printer and the Press, Mastering Dual Roles Behind Creativity in Business. And it was just an incredible panel hearing all about the side of the arts that we don't always hear about, which is the business side. So please join me in welcoming Delita Martin. Testing, testing. Yes. Good morning. Thank you all for coming. I would like to thank Taryn for inviting me here. It's so wonderful to be here and share with you my journey in the arts. Today I will be sharing that journey with you, as well as talking about artists who have inspired me and helped me to really craft and form my career as an artist as well. So thank you for that. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Delita Martin. I am a printmaker, and I have my own studio. I work at Black Box Press, and like many artists, I started with just pure passion for art. I wanted to be an artist since I was 5 years old. I declared I was an artist because I liked colors. No one told me how much that paid. No one told me how much work I had to put in, but I wanted to be an artist. And today I'm going to share that story with you. So as artists, we often just see ourselves as creatives. But in reality, what we're really doing is we're running a small business. And what that means, every decision that you make, from the work that you create to how you present that work, is both creative and business. It's two-sided. And the key to that is shifting of your mindset. Your art is not just a passion project, it's also your livelihood. And embracing that doesn't take away from the creativity, but what it actually does is it protects it and it amplifies it. And so in my journey, when I decided to be an artist, particularly in college, I started looking at the art community and looking at other artists and to see, where are they exhibiting? What circle are they in? What galleries do they talk to? All of those things was very important to me. And one of the artists that I looked at was Kehinde Wiley. So when I talk about dual roles, and the reason I'm bringing Kehinde in is that he has a documentary which I've watched several times. And my reason for watching his documentary was to learn how he runs his studio. He has 2 studios as well as a foundation, an artist residency, excuse me. And so it's been amazing to see how he fits this together and how he balances this. And I've used many things from his practice, whatever I could adapt for my practice, to formulate who I was going to be as an artist. So I started off teaching at the University of Arkansas in Little Rock, and I taught there for about 6 years. And I decided that I was going to go into the studio full time. And in doing so, I had to figure out what that really meant, because at that point, it's like, this is my job. That every 2 week paycheck is not coming in anymore. So now I have to figure out what that means. So once you've recognized yourself as both the artist and the entrepreneur, the next step is branding yourself. And you ask yourself, what is branding? Well, in the art world, your story is just as impactful and powerful as the art you make, as if you're a writer, as the words that you put on paper. All of those things are important. That is your brand. Your brand is really unique. It's your voice. It's what you stand for. It's the things that drive your work. It's your connection to people. And the tools that you can use to amplify that is your website, social media, and even short videos that share your story to a wider audience. And that was something that was really interesting to me that I had to learn the algorithms of social media. I had to learn what platforms worked for me. Not every platform works for everybody. I had to make sure my website, had adequate, beautiful images and things like that,
so that people could have access to my work. But one of the artists that I looked at for that, for this dual role, let me see if I can get to that, sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, just a moment. So beyond tools that's important, like your website, social media, it is relationships. Relationships matter in the art world. Collectors and curators, the art world thrives on community and connection. So I am here today because of those types of connections. I was invited to come here a few years ago. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to come at that time. Some life happened, but here I am now. And it's those types of connections, studio visits, visiting with other artists, socializing with collectors, you know, just communication. And I firmly believe, as an artist who has had success, it's my responsibility to have conversations like this with entrepreneurs and young artists and people who want to be in the world. So 2 artists that I looked at in particular for this particular reason was Kusama and her iconic dots in infinity rooms. When you see those dots and you see those infinity rooms, she's the first person you think of. A lot of times, even if it's not her work, you're going to question, is this Kusama's work? So I started thinking about my own work. And someone asked me, I got a call one day from a collector, and he says, Delita, I have a question for you. Your work, when you sign your work, there's a small signature in the lower right-hand corner. Why don't you make your signature bigger? And my response to him was, I don't need to, because I'm putting the energy and work in my craftsmanship so that my work will be recognized worldwide. I don't need to scream that it's my work. And she is one of the artists that I feel like does that very well. The other artist is Basquiat. And really Basquiat's foundation, his family foundation, the idea of preserving the importance of his culture and his legacy as an artist. I am currently cataloging my studio. I am working with my son so that he can eventually take over my foundation and authenticate my work. So he knows the ins and outs of my work. He knows my symbolism. He knows how my signature is. He knows that I only create bleed prints unless it's necessary for a particular project. So all of those things are really important in preserving your brand. So once your story is clear, the next question is, how do you sustain financially? Because let's face it, money matters. And that was something that took me a little while, because in art school, you know, you're like, I'm going to be a painter, so I'm just going to paint, and my paintings are going to sell. Well, that doesn't always work. There are times when sales aren't necessarily, you know, going to cut it, you know, nothing's happening. So there are other ways to think about that. So talking about money makes people uncomfortable, makes artists uncomfortable, but pricing and revenue is an extremely important when you're considering your work and you're putting your work on the market. And your pricing should reflect not just the cost, but the value of your work. And it shouldn't just consist, you know, in one space. You have to make sure that your pricing is consistent across the board. So when I started out, that was one of the most difficult challenges that I had, was actually trying to figure out, how do I price my work? And every artist has a different formula for pricing their work. Some artists go by size. Some artists go by medium. I personally look at how much work I put in, how much time is put in, how many processes I use. So there are a lot of things. Resume is included in that. You know, someone who has shown in Venice at the Venice Biennale is not going to have the same price point as someone who maybe has shown even at the Metropolitan Museum. Those are two different things that you have to take under consideration. So Mickaleen Thomas, I had the good fortune of meeting her on several occasions, but in my mind, she has been the queen of diversifying her income. She has tapped into the fashion world in such an incredible way. So she's collaborated with brands like Dior, Louis Vuitton, fashion designers. She's created jewelry, bags. She's created backdrops for fashion shows. So once you don't have to be just this monolithic person, because we're multi-layered people. And you can express that in your work, you can express that in how you provide for yourself and your family. So once you have your money flow, the next step is making sure that your practice is professional. Professional practice is very important. Contracts. I don't do anything without a contract. I don't do anything without a written agreement. That way it builds trust between you and the person that you're working with. And it also makes sure that you know what's expected of you and you can act in a professional manner. Documentation. There is always a camera or video going in my studio. I document everything. I document multiple phases of my work. When the finished product, I document it, and I also send it off to the Library of Congress to be recorded and copywritten as an extra measure of protection for myself in my studio. Right now I'm cataloging my studio, so all of these things are important so that people who are researching me in the future will be able to see what my practice was about. Theaster Gates. Several years ago, I was invited to participate in BAR, and BAR is the Black Artists Retreat in Chicago. And it was such an incredible experience because there were artists from all over the world, from Europe, from all over the United States and Canada. And we were there and we were sharing our practices. We were sharing, with the community. And what was really interesting was how Theaster, using contracts, using relationships, networking, he used all of that to literally take practically an entire neighborhood that had abandoned, dilapidated houses and turned it into a community center, a workspace for artists, documenting what happens in that community. So I definitely took a page out of his book. And when you've got your professionalism in place, the big thing comes next, and that is growth and legacy. So I'm giving an artist talk, and someone asked me, it totally threw me off, what do you want your legacy to be? Of course, I'm on stage. In the moment, I made something up. But it kind of shook me to my core because I'd never thought about that before. And so when I went back to my studio, I started thinking, what is a legacy and what do I want my legacy to be? And what I realized, there were two things that I wanted to happen. The first thing I wanted to happen was I wanted to be for other artists what artists like Elizabeth Catlett, John Biggers, Jim Dine, Monet, all of the greats, what they were for me. So studying their work, looking at their work, helped me to develop my work. The second thing I wanted was 100 years from now, when people are discussing printmaking and the boundaries that have been pushed in printmaking, I need my name to be synonymous with that conversation. So how do you do that? Well, sustainable career requires planning, short-term planning and long-term planning. Goals, the short term keeps you moving, and the long-term goals keep you focused on where you want to be. So every year, I have 2 lists. My first list, which pretty much stays the same, is those big, big, big items that I want. I want to be at the Venice Biennale. I want a solo exhibition in Europe. All of those things that you think are impossible, put them on that list. My other lists are my short-term goals. So every year I say, okay, I need to have 2 solo exhibitions. I need to have 1 group show. I'd like to meet this artist. I would like to meet this curator. All of those small goals lead me to that one big goal. And secondly, community. Community is very important. It's a part of your growth. Find mentors, find collaborators, give back. When we rise as artists together, everybody rises. So that's why I'm on this stage today, is to talk to you, to share my journey, and hopefully something that I say here today will trigger something that will help you. And Faith Ringgold, I had the pleasure of meeting her before she passed away. And her story is so incredible, but the power in the way that she preserved her legacy through books, through stories, through quilts, all of that cemented and confirmed her legacy in the art world and in the world in general. And at the end of the day, thriving as an artist means that both creativity and business is a part of your practice. So we've covered mindset, we've covered brand, money, professionalism, and legacy. And each one of those things are essential to building a sustainable career as an artist. And if you don't take anything away from this conference today, take away and remember that business does not take away from your art. It amplifies it and it protects it. And so I'm going to leave you with this this quote from Faith Ringgold. You can't sit around and wait for somebody to say who you are. You need to write it, paint it, and do it. So I'd like to open up with questions, because I feel like the true value in this conversation is the questions that you ask. Because we deal, as artists, we have a double-edged sword. On one hand, we have our 4-year degree, whether it's undergrad or graduate school, and, we go through that, but unlike other careers, there's, the internship, stay in this position for a year, then you move to this position. We don't have that roadmap. But the beauty of being an artist is that we don't have that roadmap. We get to make our careers what we want it to be. We get to shape it, we get to mold it, we get to be who we want to be, and as many people as we want to be. And the success of that is how much energy, time, and work that you put into it. So I'm also providing for you some professional business resources. I am happy to share this list with with our host, as well as you welcome to take a picture of it. And some of these, I've researched these, and all of these are active now. I don't know how much longer they will be, but I did want to provide you with something. But I would like to open it up to questions, because I feel like, I can share my story, but every single one of you sitting here today is going to have a different path. And if I can help in any way, I'd like to do that. So, are there any questions?
Okay.
Yeah.
Check.
Thank you so much. So I am here with a group of high school students, and all of them are here kind of on a dual College of Arts visits and a college visit. So I'm just curious, and I know your sort of CV was lightly covered, but if you could share maybe pivotal sort of classes or programs that you did in high school, undergrad, and then maybe beyond, or any advice you have for students in those, specifically in high school and then in college?
Yes. So, perfectly honest with you, you guys are so incredibly lucky to be here today because I did not have this at all. My high school, I never set foot in a museum until I was in college. So what I would like to impart on you are a couple of things. Number one, get involved in your local art community. Talk to artists. Artists are so open and they love people in their studio. They love teaching, all of those things. I didn't do that. I wished I had do that. So now I make it, a practice to engage with students as much as I possibly can. Two, practice your craft. I drew every single day in high school. I had a sketchbook with me all the time. I was always creating art. Spend time in your creative space. Even if I wasn't making, I was in a creative space. Maybe I was watching a documentary, maybe I just took a day to go to the museum, maybe I read an article, but engage in the practice of art, and it's not just limited to drawing, painting, or physically creating work. Any other questions?
Thank you so much. I have a question for so many artists, especially those who might be a little bit more introverted. That word network can be really intimidating. How does a young artist get started networking? How can they think about that and maybe feel less intimidated, or if they do feel a little bit intimidated, how does an artist get started networking?
So because I didn't do it in high school, like I just, talked to you guys about, I would show up at art shows and people begin to see you and they will approach you and start to talk to you. And, start with a small circle. Maybe there's an artist on Instagram that you like, reach out to them. I get DMs all the time and I answer them. I love when people DM me asking me questions about process or even just saying, hey, I like your work. Would you take a look at my work? Sure, I'll do that. Of course, I meet people that way all the time. So, if you're an introvert and you're kind of shy, take baby steps and you'll work your way up. You'll get to the point where you want to be at the exhibition or at the opening and in the big crowd. And it's just baby steps.
I think you mentioned something about sending your work to the Library of Congress.
Mm-hmm.
Can you say a little more about how that came to be?
Yes. So unfortunately, there was an individual in California who found my work, implied to a printer that I had given her permission to reproduce my work. So in order for me to be compensated for what she's done, we had to send a cease and desist letter, but it gives me that extra protection to go after for monetary damages as well. And it's just a good practice to have because technically, and I'm not a lawyer, but because I document my work in phases, each phase is its individual documentation. So I always make sure that I get a finished image and I always send it off for copywriting and I keep those little letters. I just recently found out that I'm on Amazon. Go figure. And so I'm in the process of actually trying to get them to remove the work that's on Amazon. That's my work, but not by me. And that is helping me to be able to do that.
Were there any roadblocks that almost derailed you from your passion, ones that might have been easy to avoid?
Absolutely, every time. I still have roadblocks sometimes. And I think now that I'm older, it has more to do with balancing acts, so to speak. So I think that there are three things that artists have to balance: studio practice, administrative practice, and home. I have two different theories. In reference to how do you balance work and home life, I don't really believe that there is a balance, but I believe in grace. Because there are some days when I am an amazing mom and wife, you get dinner, laundry's done, put away, and I'm killing it. And there are days when I'm in the studio and no one eats unless they feed themselves. But having a support system that supports you no matter what and giving yourself that grace, that makes a difference. The second balancing act is the administrative part with the creative part. Making sure that you balance it in a way or schedule it in a way that you don't get burned out and that you can have that creative flow to continue to happen. And as an artist, you're gonna have artist block, you're gonna have, creative block. Read. If I can't figure it out, printing, drawing, painting, or whatever, I'll read. I'll watch documentaries. There are ways to feed your creative self that will help you to move past those blocks.
Thanks, I have another question. I know you're a founding member of Black Women of Print. Oh, no, you've done some things with them.
Yes.
Can you talk about how being part of artist collectives, you touched upon that a little bit, but I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about specifically how being a part of art collectives has helped you reach specific goals, or has it helped you reach specific goals, like introducing you to a curator or a collector or getting your work placed in collections?
Yes, I'm a part of two groups. The first group is RU. It is myself, artist Ann Johnson, Lovey Olivia, and Rabea Bain, and they were on the panel with me when we first met, at least two of them. And Print Legacy. And what each of those groups have done for me is, one, an amazing support system. If there's anything I'm trying to figure out how to do, I have these groups of friends to help me do it. I've learned process. Hey, I'm trying to figure out how to do this photo etching. I've never done this before. Well, hey, give Shauna and Jess a call. That's what they do. So all of that cross-pollination between, your creative practice and someone else's creative practice, that's something that can enrich your work and enrich you as a person as well. So again, community is extremely important. I absolutely believe in each one teach one. And when one rise, we all can rise.
Thanks so much, Delita, for everything you're sharing. Could you talk a little bit about kind of like a typical day in your studio and maybe highlight some things that you do on the administrative work side and how you keep a project going?
Yes. So when I first began my practice, and I say began my practice, when I left teaching in around 2014, it was me. I had to wear every hat in the studio. I was the creative person. I was the tech team. I was really bad at that. I was everything. I had to be all of those people. And so it took me probably 2 years to figure out how to navigate those waters. And I was literally throwing stuff at the wall trying to figure it out. So I went from Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays as creative days, Tuesday, Thursdays, administrative days, to, oh no, I don't want to do that. Maybe I'll just do one day administrative day. So you have to figure it out. Everybody's practice is different. And that's okay. And I had to learn that. And what that helped me do was give myself permission to be the type of artist that I needed to be. Understanding your growth, when you grow and how you grow. it's going to be painful, and it's going to be painful in a way that when I had to hire staff, I was scared to death. I was like, oh my God, I am like someone's boss. I am like horrible at this, but I needed help. So I have an administrative assistant who, well, she's actually my studio manager who handles travel and all administrative things. I have a studio artist, a printmaker who helps me with producing the work. I have an attorney on retainer who helps review all of my contracts that come in. I have a relationship with a shipping company that I work with to ship my work and carry my work. My galleries, I have an amazing relationship with my galleries. There are different types of galleries. I want to talk about that for a second. I know, artists are like, oh, I need a gallery, I need a gallery. You need to understand the different types of galleries. There's the vanity galleries that are out there. There's the galleries that are just hoping for visitors to come to town. Maybe they sell something, maybe they don't. My goal was I wanted a handler. I wanted someone that was going to help me advance and develop my career and not just sell my work. I needed a relationship. So if I'm going to be in the studio spending all this time to make both of us money, I need you out scouting opportunities for me. So every year I have a meeting with my galleries and I say, guess what? I want to have a solo exhibition in London. That's what I want to do. Here are the galleries or the museums that I'm looking at. How do we make this happen? And they, along with me, come up with a plan to make that happen. So I think one of the hardest things and a myth that I had to get over is that I'm not an island. I can't do everything by myself. I'm not good at it. Yes.
Actually, I have a question. So a lot of young students here, and things happen fast, right?
Mm-hmm.
How long did it take you to get to the point where you said, I'd like to have an exhibition in London?
I'm 52 now, about 45. It was on my list, but I had the baby steps to get there. And let me tell you how that happened. My gallery was working a fair. They met a gentleman who was a printmaker who ran a studio in Germany. And they told him about me, and he invited me to come to do a residency in Germany. My gallery facilitated everything. Not only did I have a solo show in Germany, I had a 3-person show in London. And it was because of that relationship that my gallery took the initiative to set up for me and work for me in that way. But just so you know, and I don't want you to get discouraged, I said I was an artist at 5, but in all honesty, my career did not take off until I was 40 years old. But it was worth the wait. And the journey is, if I never sell another piece of artwork in my life, the journey has been worth it.
So you launched your own foundation, and I was wondering if you could walk through the process of what it took to create and be able to launch it.
Yes. So the foundation started because of the George Floyd murder. My son, I have a son. He was, a high schooler, I think a senior at the time. And as a mother, it was a difficult time. I have a young Black son. I was concerned about him, but I wanted to understand what he was seeing from his perspective, as opposed to me as a mother. I had my view. So I feel like that moment we really understood we got to understand each other or know each other in a different way. And so he says to me, I asked him, I said, well, would you make a piece of artwork with me? And he said, sure. So he posed and he helped me carve the block and all of those things. And he says, we should sell these. And I'm like, I don't know about that. And he's like, no, we could donate the money. And so we started looking at, places to donate, and there were foundations, but they weren't really active, or they weren't doing what we wanted to do. And so we decided to be the change that we wanted to see. And my son and I, we got to work. And here is where networking and community and knowing your limitations takes place. I reached out to a friend who worked in nonprofits, and she helped me, walk me through the paperwork, the filing of the paperwork. And I think that's really the hardest part, is filing the paperwork. We sold the prints. 100% of the proceeds went into the foundation to fund artists who were creating work that really kind of talked about a cause. I didn't really care what the cause was. It was just about artists, speaking up and using their voice, and it's $5,000 grant. Unfortunately, the way things have, started to move in the world today, we've kind of switched models in that now I'm inviting artists to come into the studio, and I'm having to choose organizations and individual artists that we can help and support in that way.
Any
But
other
I
questions?
also formulated Dima Designs, which is a lifestyle brand, which again was inspired by Mickaleen Thomas. I have a tea company, because I love tea, and why not?
Do you ever feel restricted by bodies of work that you produce, and how do you overcome that?
I do not. And I don't want this, do not take this as a flippant answer, but I think that there comes a time in your career as an artist, in your development as an artist, that you begin to have confidence in yourself. Now keep in mind there's a difference between confidence and arrogance, but having the confidence to give yourself permission to be the artist that you need to be. I was taught that if your spirit or your soul tells you to paint apples for a year, that's what you do, because there's a message there somewhere, and it's up to you to figure it out. So I don't allow myself to get restricted in that way. And I'm not gonna say I don't care about people viewing my work, but that's not why I make it. So it has less of an impact on whether or not I feel like I can't break out of something.
Any other questions?
I know that a lot of young artists feel some sort of apprehension towards entering the field because of instability that there is. Like, I know myself, I'm a photographer, and I want to be a photographer, but I know there's a lot of instability with freelancing and kind of like setting yourself up. So what do you have to say towards those sorts of people who are feeling apprehension?
I understand your apprehension, but again, I have a tea company, I have a lifestyle brand, and all of it's centered around my creativity. So the tea that I make, I worked with an individual to develop the blends based on my travels and my artwork. I treat the tea as if it's a printmaking process, in that each can there's only 2,500 canisters, and each canister is signed and numbered by me. I have Dima Designs, which I've designed a scarf, I've designed mugs, all of those things. So what I want you to take away from that is, like, being a photographer doesn't mean that you just have to go out and shoot pictures or shoot a wedding. I mean, there's so many things that you can do with photography. So I encourage you to explore, as many different avenues, and encourage you to make some up. I mean, why not? I mean, people ask me all the time, they're like, well, you say you're a printmaker, but this is a drawing and you have painting in it. And I welcome the conversation of, well, you tell me why it's not a print, because I can give you 50 reasons why it is. So, exploration. I think there's someone here in the front.
You had your hand up.
You said you been painting since you were 5. Did you do it as a hobby and if so what was it like doing it as a hobby and as a kid?
So it's never been a hobby in my mind. I personally don't really like that word. Only because it's the seriousness of it. You know, when people think about a hobby, they don't think about anything as being serious. So it was never a hobby for me. I grew up in a household of creatives. My father was a painter. He also made furniture. My grandfather could draw. There were writers, quilt makers. So I basically kind of grew up in an art school type setting. So in my mind, I was an artist. From the time I was 5 years old, my parents would introduce me, oh, this is our youngest daughter, Delita, and she's an artist. Baby, go get your work so you can show them. So that's how I grew up. And so it was never a question of what I would be. It was just a matter of how it was going to get done.
Any other questions?
My question is kind of about how do you think emerging artists who are currently in school should kind of prioritize their time? Right now it feels like in art, it can feel like we have to have 100 different hats. We have to be a marketer, we have to work on the advertisement, we have to be our own brand ambassador. So for those who are just starting out, how do you think is an efficient way to go about what they should be focusing on?
I think I would say the focus in the early stages is to do the work, to do good work. I remember being an undergrad, and oddly enough, I failed drawing. And my professor told me, he's like, Ms. Pinchback, I think you're going to pass my class this semester. And he's like, because you learned the secret. And I was like, what's the secret? And I'm thinking I really learned the secret. And he was like, do the work. I was like, oh, okay. So, you know, I think it's really developing as an artist. And so with developing as an artist does not stop in the classroom. Again, that includes going to exhibitions, that includes meeting artists, you know, experimenting with new medium. You know, for a while, I had this thing in my head was like, am I really a printmaker? But I really love drawing. Identify yourself the way you want to identify yourself. If I can't paint it, I'm gonna draw it. If I can't draw it, I'm gonna print it. If I can't print it, I'm gonna collage it. I can do all of those things because I'm a multi-layered individual, just like all of you.
Great. We have time for one more question. Anybody has a question? Okay. Well, thank you so much, Delita, for being here. Let's give her a big round of applause for a fantastic presentation.